everybody, welcome back. Stephen here, Northwest Small Batch Brewing. Hi. Today, I have a question. Is there a difference between pale ale and amber ale? They're the same thing, right? I would question the average person as to whether they really know what the difference is. Can you tell a difference if somebody who's not a beer brewer or a beer aficionado walks into a bar? Do you know what you're getting, whether you order an amber or a pale ale? They're kind of indistinguishable. Or are they? So let's talk about it. I have two fine examples here in front of me. I have Sierra Nevada, which is the quintessential pale ale. That is the OG of pale ales. This one is, I mean, you can't get more OG than that. There is one made by Deschutes that's almost identical, but it came after. It did come after the Sierra Nevada. And then I have here a amber ale. Now, I had a little trouble finding an amber, to be honest with you. There weren't a lot of options. This is Widmer. It's called Drop Top, and it's a pretty good example, I think, of an amber. So let's start with pale ale. And I'm going to start with that one and open it. And I'll try to keep the bottle next to the glass so I don't get them mixed up. So let's start out with hops. Because in my opinion, hops are one of the things anyway that makes a big difference between what a pale ale is and what an amber ale is. Pale ale, the one I'm pouring right now, the Sierra Nevada, tends to be more hop forward than an amber, okay? And it's often more citrusy and piney and floral. It is generally American hops like Cascade and Centennial that are used in a pale ale. And the aroma and bitterness are usually medium to high on a pale ale. I really want to taste it, but we'll get back to that. The head retention is going to drop on these while I'm busily talking too much. But let's talk about the amber ale here. So Widmer amber ale. And again, still talking about the hops between the two different beers, right? Amber hops are moderate and more balanced. So, once again, the pale ale is hoppier and more hop forward than the amber ale. The amber ale is more moderate and balanced. Oh man, there's some good carbonation going on in this one. Here. I don't know if that's lined up. Hopefully you can see one and the other. I gotta sniff them side by side. The amber ale uses similar. It's going to use citrusy, piney hops, but just with less intensity. Bitterness on the amber ale supports the malt rather than leading the beer. I gotta be honest. I mean, my nose is a little stuffy from allergies, but they smell pretty much the same to me. They're very similar. And they look, I don't know how it looks on camera, but they look identical as well in color. This is crazy. Maybe they are the same thing and we're just being duped. All right, let's move on to the malt. So in a pale ale, primarily, the malts are like, pale malts with specialty additions. Usually you get a very clean, light, bready, and almost biscuity flavor with a pale malt. And the idea is to allow the hops to shine. So it's a very light on the malt, and they try to push the hops. Whereas on the amber ale, this is going to be similar, base malt, but it's going to use more caramel and crystal malts. It's going to be sweeter, richer, toastier, and more caramel forward from those crystal malts. And the malt plays a much more dominant role in an amber ale compared to a pale ale. All right, color-wise, man, I mean, this, you can see there's not much difference. A pale ale tends to be straw to deep gold. An amber ale is usually a little bit deeper, a little bit more reddish brown. I don't know. The amber ale has an SRM, and those of you who don't brew, that's a way to give an actual scientific number to the color of a beer. So the SRM range for the pale ales between 4 and 7, whereas usually an amber ale is between 10 and 17, making it significantly darker, or at least it should be visually darker. I'm not seeing it. I'm just trying to hold these up here to the light. Honest to God, they look like identical beers in front of me here. They really do. What else? So the yeast, let's talk about the yeast. So the yeast for your amber, sorry. No, let's start with pale. I've been doing this in that order. So the pale ale uses a clean American ale yeast. You may get some subtle esters, but generally speaking, the yeast stays out of the way of the hops with a pale ale. With the amber ale, you're also using a clean American yeast, but it's slightly more accentuating on the strains that can be used. But generally, you get a very neutral and light fruitiness at the most. So maybe a little bit more action from the yeast on the amber, but not really much. And probably, I gotta be honest with you, I don't know because it doesn't say, but I'll bet you both of these are probably using like a Chico strain of yeast. Taste-wise, all right, here we go. I mean, this is what I've been waiting for. Taste-wise, the pale ale. That's a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. It is, to me, it is piney. It has that piney bitterness that you get that sometimes, it's not my favorite thing in a beer, to be honest. That's why I'm not a huge fan of West Coast IPAs. I don't like that clinging bitterness that you get from those. Clean malt background. I mean, it's refreshing. It is crisp, but it definitely gets has that bitter flavor that you get from hops, you know, from the bittering that I'm just not a huge fan of. I don't personally find the pale ale to be super well balanced in that manner. Amber ale. All right. Now it's starting to smell different. This is starting to smell sweeter. Now that my nose and maybe it's clearing up a little bit, but this is smelling a little different, a little bit cleaner or sweeter. Remember that the amber ale is less driven by hops and more by the grain like the caramel and crystal. Oh yeah, there's definitely a huge flavor difference. When I say it's like caramel, toasty, toffee, it's not like you're biting into a candy, right? It's not that sweet, you know. But when you compare the two, the amber is significantly, in my opinion, more well balanced. And oh yeah, it's just overall much more pleasant. The bitterness on the amber is much more well balanced. It's not, the hops are not as dominant. You know, you're not getting that clinging bitterness you get from the pale ale. It's rounder, it's richer. Like I said, it is, in my opinion, sweeter. There is a sweeter finish. I won't say, I just don't want to make a, you know, I don't want to say it's a sweet beer because it's not a sweet beer. It's just so much more well balanced with the bitterness. All right, so is there a difference between pale ale and amber ale, or are they the same thing? They are definitely different. Subtle, though. It's subtle. Visually, they look almost identical, although I do think that an amber ale can sometimes get a little bit darker, but they're very similar in appearance. And again, the aroma, you don't get a lot of aroma off of that pale, the Sierra Nevada, to be honest. I'm getting more off of the amber ale than I am off the Sierra Nevada. And the, you know, flavor-wise, like I said, the pale ale It's drier, tastes drier anyway. It's more bitter. It leaves kind of a gross, you know, like sour taste in your mouth. Whereas this has a sweeter smell. It doesn't taste too sweet. I can get every sip I take of it, I'm tasting more the maltiness in it, but it is balanced really well. Now, I'm not trying to give, you know, is one better than the other here. You know, everybody has their own preference. You know, if you're a New England IPA person, you're gonna prefer the pale ale. If you like that bitterness, and a lot of people do, you're gonna be team, you know, Sierra Nevada pale ale. If you like, in my opinion, a more balanced beer where the hops are not overly bitter, you're getting that caramel malt just enough to give it enough sweetness to get away from the bitterness. This one, you're gonna be team amber ale over here. Anyway, that's all I had. I just wanted to compare the two because, gosh, they're so similar. You almost wonder how can they be two different styles when they are almost identical. But when it comes down to the taste, side by side, they are absolutely different. They definitely are. And it definitely helps you, if you're a brewer, to understand the, you know, how crystal malts and caramel malts can play a huge, you know, difference in a beer, and how it doesn't take much for it to kind of balance the bitterness of a hop. Anyway, that's all I got. Let me know if you're on Team Pale Ale or Team Amber Ale in the comments. I'll be back in another week with another video. And until then, keep on brewing. Cheers.